Wonderful. We are live. Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. I'm Anissa Tehran, and my co host Jamila is back. We all missed her, so we're very glad to have her back. And we have the lovely Tanner Dewitt. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Dewitt, do it.
Du-
That works.
Okay. So I'm going to let you say hi, and then I'm going to introduce his bio afterwards, and I'm going to press live on our Instagram in that meantime. Go for
Okay,
it.
fantastic. Thank you, Anissa, for the very warm welcome back. And I've missed you just as much as you've missed me, and excited to be back. And what a great guest we have on today, and such a pertinent topic because most of us are suffering with this. So I'm very keen to hear more about this. And yeah, without any further ado, Anissa, I'll hand over to you. I think you're on mute.
Fantastic. Yes, I'm off mute. So, I mean, I absolutely love this topic as well because how do we actually shift out of suffering? And that's really very much what this caption of our podcast is named, shifting from that grudge state, because that's really where we sit in suffering. But a little bit about our esteemed guest, originally a real estate investor, a lover of personal development. Thanks to financial freedom with rental properties, he created his company to work with people in a one-to-one environment to help them create a life that honors top values of accountability, clarity, and fun. That sounds exciting. So, where did this all start, Tanner? Just share with us where you're from so that our guests can know where you're from and then dig right in. And we're just going to flow. You've got your tea, coffee, something to drink, and I have
Yeah.
something cold to drink on my side. So, you're welcome to shoot off.
Thank you again for having me on. I've been enjoying kind of snooping around some of your guys' previous content. Feels very warm and very welcoming. So again, thanks for having me on. Like we had mentioned, I'm located a couple hours west of Chicago here in America. And I'll kind of maybe just going back a little bit, referencing the real estate stuff. A lot of people like to hear about real estate. I think the thought of real estate was always fun. I think I kind of fell into that trap myself. I'm luring. It's like, oh, I've heard a lot of people make money in it. It gives flexibility and freedom. And I think this concept of being free was, I wouldn't say obsession, but kind of loomed around. I didn't want to. I think it's really popular for my generation to really kind of avoid the 9-to-5 grind that a lot of like my parents and grandparents, really went through. And so real estate felt appealing to me in college when kind of bouncing around, changing a couple majors, spending way too much money on classes I can't even remember what I learned in them. But then it kind of kept falling back to real estate. I was lucky enough to find a mentor, and you guys seeing kind of what you do and coaching and all this. And I used to be so against it, like I can do it all myself and all this and that. And then I finally did get a mentor, and it turns out they see things that we don't in the day-to-day. A lot of we talk about suffering, and we'll talk more about that today. And a lot of the traps, patterns, habits, distractions that really beat the crap out of us day in, day out. My mentor was able to kind of start locating that, and she owned a bunch of rental properties in the area. And the little deal we worked out was if I found renters for her rentals, she would waive my rent. And I thought, what a concept. Okay. So I started getting some things booked. I enjoyed the process. I really love historical homes, older homes and stuff like that. And that was kind of her thing. Granted, college students really didn't appreciate the historical features of that, as much versus just wanting to have friends over, this and that. But anyway, it was a cool match. And I learned a lot from her after graduating, kind of speeding through the story a little bit, but her sister worked in Chicago. She was a real estate agent in the city of Chicago, and we got connected. And I thought I was like a little hustler, but this lady was taking business to a whole new level, nonstop working, and kind of really opened my eyes. Chicago's very competitive. It's very fast paced. There's a lot of, so I kind of got really jerked into the business side of things. I was learning a lot, and it was good. We get paid as agents. I was getting paid in commissions, and I almost think that being a little more ignorant and just diving in is actually a really good thing, because it doesn't you got those fears and limiting beliefs that kind of keep you stuck like glue. And I didn't really have any of that, because I was like, I'll just go and make 200,000 selling. And I didn't sell anything in the first 6 months. And I didn't save that much money in college. Most of us don't. And so Uber driving, handing out business cards like crazy. And honestly, I was getting really sad, and I felt very lonely. And I was renting a room over in just north of Lakeview in a neighborhood called Uptown, for folks who know Chicago. And I rented the room. I had one little window that looked right into a brick wall. And I was like, man, really, what am I doing? And I thought I was doing the right things. Really, I think I was being impatient, which I think is very common for a lot of us. And I decided, I was like, I'm going to reach out to some wise people, because I got mentorship in the past. And I was like, so I ended up in a roundabout way, a friend of a friend, I got turned on to a life coach, and really just started processing things, and just being emotional, slaying the dragons. I think we all have these dragons that, man, they just eat us alive. Everyone, whether you're born in the prettiest parts of the world or maybe the roughest neighborhoods, it seems that we all carry some baggage and skeletons, and like we all have our stuff, right? The energy gets trapped, and I really got a lot of help through that, and I gained a lot of my confidence back. And then after selling a couple places, flipping a couple condos, I was like, okay, I'm starting to figure this out. And then COVID happened, and I was back into my room, looking at the brick wall through the one little window, and I was like, man, I don't know what I should do. And I'm very grateful. My buddy, he asked me, he's like, do you want to come back to my hometown? He's like, you can stay in the house here. And he had, like a little gym at home, and he had a nicer home. So I was like, man, that sounds way better than this. And so I moved back with him, and kind of COVID things are rolling. And then I got my first opportunity. I was like, I still really love real estate, but I didn't have nearly enough money to buy rental properties in Chicago. But then I started meeting a couple investors here. A guy who I went to high school with, he's like, hey, you should buy some rentals here. I'm like, well, I'll go walk them, like show it to me. And this was at a point, if you guys remember, there was a moratorium where you didn't have to pay rent for a little while. And that was putting a lot of landlords under pressure. It turns out that the investing books are right. When things are struggling, things are hard, like stocks come down, houses come down, that's when you usually get your best deals. Granted, it would have been harder to find people to pay rent. So, the good and the bad. And I got a couple opportunities. I bought one place, I was fixing up, and then I got another one, and then I started, it started snowballing pretty good. Times got better, as we all know. Winter doesn't last forever, thankfully. And yeah, after getting some stability, reaching this financial freedom, it's a term that gets thrown around a lot. And it was something I I thought would give me purpose. And it was, but then I kind of achieved it. And then for about 20 minutes, I was like, like, it's like, what do I do now? And I'm going to continue to invest. I want more properties and stuff, but it really wasn't very, very enjoyable to me much anymore. On the rental front, it'd been about it'd be about 3, almost 4 years now. And I was like, man, and I was talking to my coach about this the whole time. He's like, why don't you just try coaching folks? And so that's when I started kind of creating my own plan with that, and now kind of do an action-based approach. It's interesting how all of your experience, I'm sure you guys can really relate, your experiences kind of form into this like unique shape that is you, and then you present your value in the best way that you can, because no one can argue your personal experience, and then you just try to hopefully do it from a state of helping people. But that was a really long-winded way of saying, yeah, through real estate, the ups and downs of it now, and kind of getting into the coaching model here as I hit my 3rd decade.
You know, I love what you shared because there's lots of nuances to it. You know, I'm not necessarily happy, even though I've acquired all of these things. So I might be extrinsically motivated and inspired at one given moment in time, but intrinsically, if I'm not inspired or I'm not really feeling anything of accomplishment, even if I may have reached different milestones in my life, it comes back to that inner sanctuary that needs to be in a tranquil state and very much grounded before you can really dabble into what it is that you want to pursue that is purposeful for you. Because the things that look like the shiny objects for most of us initially in our paths or in our careers or whether it's in our personal professional lives, it doesn't always pan out that way. I mean, I can certainly attest to having achieved and then still feeling empty. There was that emptiness that I'm hearing you say, Tanner. It was like, okay, so what now? Because that was no longer meaningful, and it was the next thing that you're chasing. And I think to come back to the topic of today is that creates the suffering, because we aspire and we desire and we crave, and it's all of those things that pushes us over the edge, and then we have to face those dragons, as you say. So from my side, I really want to get a sense of, in this very young 3 decades of your life, what was the one life-defining experience other than COVID that pushed you to get to this point right now? And if you're willing to be vulnerable and share, who were you as a person in those moments, other than the person we're seeing today that is very articulate, well put together, and very much knows what he wants in life?
Yeah, it was really sweet of you to say. I'll take the compliment. I would say, yeah, to be open and vulnerable. Had some family struggles, and I think I was really trying to prove myself for the wrong reasons. I think it's very common for a lot of us to not feel good enough. And although that might have not been a particular thought in my head, I think it was more so a feeling, a tightness that I carried in my chest with me very often. And I think that was one of the dragons that I really needed to slay, was some of my insecurities about being somebody for somebody else. And I think that's a dangerous game. And it always kind of leads to the same thing, maybe not so much the words, but the feelings and some of those bad juju energies that we hold in our body that cause a lot of suffering. Like it's really crazy. You can't even really describe it. versus versus like a feeling. And I think this is those feelings were really why I had some of the habits that I had. I used to smoke cigarettes and I used to drink a lot, and those aren't. I was doing those not because I like wanted to, but I used to have this belief that it would give me something, and really all it was giving me was just kind of a numb feeling, and that didn't really help. But yeah, once I was really doing deeper work and kind of letting go of really like this idea of just trying to work with folks and let go of things and be very open and honest. And those were some of the conclusions I came up with. Who knows if I was right or wrong, but I can tell you I feel a hell of a lot better nowadays. I feel like I don't really have anything to prove anymore. And I think that was one of my vices.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm just sitting here listening to you. And I think what needs to be commended as well, Tanner, is that you went against the grain. You went against everything that we are expected to achieve, or the milestones that we expected to, by going out into real estate and, taking on that challenge and the hustle. That takes a lot of courage and bravery to do. It's almost easy when you step in from school and you go to university and you graduate, and then the next step is a safe job, but you took a different path, and your path has continually been something where you've challenged yourself to bring you to this point, which is really, really commendable. And just to your point about when we are younger, we have these insecurities, and it's that's where the dragons are born. It might be something someone says, or it might be something you've overheard someone say about you that could remain and plant a seed of insecurity within you that you carry throughout your life. And as you say, it kind of determines who you are and what your behaviors are like into your adulthood. And it's so important to do the work and to have the correct mentors in your space to be able to point these out to you. Because sometimes it's difficult for us to see it, to weed through all those insecurities and actually pinpoint the time that it was said to us, the time that it was planted in us. So it's fantastic that you're doing this. What I'm intrigued about is the blackboard behind you. And I can't wait to get to that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a paint that's thick as tar, but you paint it onto a wall. And shout out to my wife. She's really good with home improvement stuff, and it was actually her idea. But but yeah, you can write on it with chalk, and it's really fun. I take clients and we just do exercises and brainstorm and just really just get to work on it. So I wrote some fun questions down that maybe, is there a good time that we should dive into it and kind of do the exercise? It's just 4 little fun questions.
Go for it.
I think let's dive right in. I'm just as intrigued, Jamila, because something fresh, something new. We always love that you can bring it to the segment. So go for it.
Yeah, I want to preface with, this will probably be a good gateway into our meat and potatoes of topic, this idea of reducing suffering. And I really like the emphasis on that reducing, and this idea that it never really goes away. At least in my experience, it never really goes away. But I think if we can reduce it just a little bit today, it can make today a great day. And that's all I can really ask for. And that process has really brought me a lot of peace and joy, and I'm sure a lot of other folks as well in this wonderful space. So these are just 4 questions. Maybe you've heard them before, maybe not, but just kind of stuff to plant into your brain a little bit, maybe use for journaling, maybe ask your spouse, maybe ask a friend these questions. But they're some of my favorite ones that kind of have this, I think they really give clarity to like how often we're suffering, or maybe catching ourselves, right? That superpower of awareness. Because I feel like if you have awareness, like you have the keys to the golden gates, like you can start to really like see the patterns and things and see what's like really serving us and not. It seems almost so much of our suffering is, could we say, unconscious or unnecessary. And hopefully some of these questions can bring to light. So the first one I have here on the board is there anything you want to let go of? Kind of this, really love this idea of letting go. And just a simple, graceful question that we can ask ourselves, is there anything that we want to let go of? And kind of letting our intuition, maybe when we answer these questions, we speak more with our heart and our gut than our brain. Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite writers, he's been really popular for that book, The Power of Now, talking about 95% of our thoughts are redundant or negative. The mind is such a beautiful, powerful thing, but yet there's it tends to be the center, the locus of control of our suffering. So maybe we just kind of ask ourselves, is there anything we want to let go of? And kind of see what comes up. First question. Next up would be, do you focus more on what you have or what is missing? Do you focus more on what you have or what is missing? I think feeling joy, I've heard all different types of opinions on, happiness. Like, is happiness the right goal, or is it a fleeting state? Or really, maybe it's more so about just feeling joy more often, feeling gratitude, what this podcast does an awesome job of representing. In this, like, when I focus on the things that I have, maybe I think about my beautiful wife or my family or the meals I get to eat, or it's really hard. If not, I've heard, I don't like to say the word impossible, but is it possible to be angry and to be grateful at the same time? It's, if we can just put ourselves in states where we just feel a little bit better, it could just be going through the list again. And it's okay to go through these multiple times a day, or at least I find pleasure in it, just focusing on the things I have and catching myself. If I don't feel very good right now, what have I been thinking about? Am I thinking about how I need more properties to feel accomplished? Do I need more money or more clients? Or I need this, and I need, thinking of the things that I don't have tend to lead us down to the well of suffering that can cause a lot of pain. So second question was, do you focus more on what you have or what is missing? Third question up here, do you focus more on what you can or cannot control? Do you focus more on what you can or cannot control? It's really, sometimes it can be really tough. I went to a dinner not too long ago, and there was a bit of a fallout, like people who I knew were friends for a really long time, and they were arguing about politics and about how this should be done and this should be done and it should look like this, and you're wrong and I'm right and you're wrong, and all this stuff, talking about just worrying about things that they cannot control. Were they or were they not in states of suffering? Was that unnecessary suffering? Were they conscious of the suffering? These are things that we just kind of bring up when we think of when we are being hard on ourselves. I like to think of this idea of, if we can just be a little kinder to ourselves, we probably feel a little bit better. But if you focus more on what you can control, maybe it's the small step that you take in your business today. Maybe it's the exercise routine. Maybe we're careful about what we put into our bodies, the things that we can control. And when we see progress and grace and gratitude within that stuff, I think it makes us feel a whole lot better than worrying about, what are the interest rates going to be? What are the politicians doing? What's that person think of me? And all this stuff, this hoopla that kind of goes on, kind of seems like a hamster wheel almost. just like round and round and round and round it goes without any breaks until we get so tired that it's time to go to bed, or we indulge in, unfortunately, maybe a bad habit. Or that's what I used to do. I get so wound up, I'd be like, okay, I need to go drink to calm down, when it was doing the opposite and not really helping with that. But focusing more on what you can versus what you cannot control. And the last question is my personal favorite, but this one I think takes a lot of you guys in your spaces. I'll be curious to what you guys think of it, but this one means the most to me. And it really, I think the words don't matter as much versus how we feel. And then, you know how you hear a cliche saying and then certain ones are quotes and you're like, that really clicks with me. And it's interesting, we all find different ones that match with us. But this one really matched with me is, do you focus more on the past, present, or future? Do you focus more on the past, present, or future? Whenever I think of suffering and whenever I am maybe journaling about it or kind of discussing it with colleagues or something along these lines, really when I am present, maybe right here, right now, here in the podcast, I'm listening to you guys, you're listening to me, we got the playback, we're locked in the present moment. I think that's when I have the least amount of suffering, when I'm locked in and I'm doing my writing, or when I'm locked in and doing something, working with a client, I'm really engaged with them. And the time of day doesn't matter. The day of the week doesn't matter. My future goals don't matter. What I have to eat for dinner doesn't matter. And it's just here in the beautiful now. It's so that would be my last one, is just like, how often are you living in the present? Because when you're living in the past, I can respect the idea that we need the past to learn and reflect. But really, how long do you need to be living there? I think when you stay too long, you get bitten by the beast of guilt and shame and fear, or vice versa with the future, bitten by the beast of anxiety. That I think is really a lot of my nephews, they're all so anxious and they talk about anxiety. I'm like, holy crap, that wasn't even a thought or an idea for me until I was older. I understand everyone's different, but it's sometimes that's, if I did have one of the worries in the future, it'd be how some of our children are going to handle some of these like pressures and that they've been really having to manage, comparison to other folks and that kind of stuff. But that was my last question for you guys. These 4 questions. Looks like you were kind enough to put them on here on I write in cursive, so if it's hard to read. So thank you for putting it on the screen for everyone. I appreciate it.
These were really, really powerful questions, and I love each and every one of them, because what it is asking us to do is tap into the inner wisdom, that inner sage. And it's not saying that you need to negate the fact that you are going to be in suffering. A term that I've been exposed to is your saboteur, is that you are going to self-sabotage. That is innately how we will do it. But what I love about these questions, and I'm just going to read it out again, is there anything you want to let go of? Do you focus more on what you have or what is missing? Do you focus more on what you can or cannot control? And do you focus more on the past or the present? These are powerful in the sense that it asks us to get back to center, get back to now in this present moment. I'm going to challenge you, Tanner, and I'm wanting you to define. I've put a question up there on the screen. How do you define then grit in your own life? And can you share an example or a situation where it was put to the test, and were you able to apply this wisdom back then, or did you only discover this later? And how were you kind to yourself, knowing that you maybe didn't follow these guidelines or these questions the powerful questions that you've asked?
Man, yeah, this term grit is an example. I think I wasn't really thinking of it at the time. I had for one of my rental properties. I had a hoarder in one of them, and it was like you couldn't even really get the door open. I bought this house from a friend, and I didn't even look at it because the numbers were so good. I thought I was like most. I was like, oh, I bought multiple in that neighborhood. I know what I want. I don't need to look at it. That's fine. It turns out you should probably do an inspection, folks. But either way, so I bought it. It was like this hoarder property, and I was trying to like open it. And when I went to go open it, it was like hitting the stuff because it was like blocking. It was so filled to the brim. And then I opened it up, and it's stacked to the top, and there was, it was really gross. Hopefully not too gross for some folks, but there was like, this person was like pooping in bags, and it was like, there was bugs all over the place. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I called an extreme extermination company, clean out company, and they wanted like $10,000 to clean it out. Well, I'd used all my money to buy the next property and stuff, and I got over my skis a little bit because I was trying to grow too quickly, and I didn't have the money. And I was like, well, what do I do? And this and that. I was really like frustrated. I was come home, and I remember my wife was telling me this story the other day, and she's like, I just saw the look on your face, like you just look so defeated and sad, and like, what am I gonna do? And I think one of my classic defaults is I'm a Tony Robbins fanboy, and I was texting my life coach, and then we were watching this video together of Tony Robbins and stuff, and essentially I remember this beautiful story of someone, this mother who like lost her child, and then she started this company and stuff, and I was just like crying. I was like, dude, I can do this. And I do believe there's just internal motivation, but the external motivation, just the right environment really helped prime me again of saying like, there's tough times. And I think this was probably one of my best examples of grit. And I just went in there and I cleaned out the whole 2-bedroom unit. I filled up 2 20-yard dumpsters in like 3 days, and I cleaned it out. I was just scrubbing, ripping everything out. And then I got out and I got some help, and then rehabbed it and got it rented out. Now that property makes great money, and I have a really good friend who rents it, and it's yeah. So I think grit could think of it. I'm curious how you guys would define it, but when you feel that you've been defeated, but then you just take a step forward anyway. And it's amazing how things just tend to work out when you don't quit.
Yeah, absolutely. And well done for that. And again, it just shows how important it is to have the right people in your space to help you to move on and to remind you about that grit that you do inherently possess, right? Because it's what or who you show up as when you think that there's just no way forward. You find that grit within yourself. I've been speaking to a friend of mine, and she's in her 50s. And she just looked so down and defeated this week. And when I had a chat with her, it was literally that she wasn't able to say no to other people and to the expectations that others have of them. Can you speak to us about that kind of suffering that people do endure, and particularly for those who are people pleasers, who feel that they have to and they have no other choice, to let go of that suffering without any guilt, without any shame, and to be able to choose themselves?
Yeah, that is, I think that's a really good question. It's like really an epidemic on people. How do I say this in the right way? So I don't know if anybody's familiar with Ayn Rand. She was an author, a long time ago. She's got some famous like historical fiction books. She was famous for some theories on objectivity. And anyway, it made me think of her, and her like central theme was like how it's actually really important to be selfish in the sense of like treating yourself first. Say if you're on an airplane, they tell you have to put your mask on before you put on the mask of your child, which is priority number one, right? But you still have to put yours on first. And I think of I have friends who are nurses, and I have friends who are caregivers, and I've met a lot of people who are in this space of where they are taking care of other people so much, and they're so tired, and that they don't take care of themselves. And you can see it with their health habits and how they distract themselves and stuff like that. And so trying to wrap our heads around that, it's actually a path to reducing suffering is being a little bit selfish in the way of making sure you are taken care of first and trying to do our best. There's so many emotions. I understand life is just hard, and but it really is our responsibility to take care of ourselves first, because if we can't properly do that, in the long run, we won't inevitably be able to take care of other people, which is, that's how we want to live, right? We want to serve and we want to give. And it's, it's really tough because we see it, like you just mentioned, I feel like we see that all the time, but really trying to embody this idea that we really need to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of others.
Yeah, I think my colleague Anissa can relate to that. I think her screen is a bit frozen though. But yeah, especially in my generation and Anissa's generation, that's how we were brought up to be. You always look at everyone else first before yourself. And when you do look at yourself, the odd occasions that you do, you normally met with, she's being selfish, she's being a diva, she's being whatever, very negative connotations to it. Tell me what it's like in your generation. You in your 30s now. I'm finding that with the younger generation, they're claiming their power, they are putting themselves first, and they're doing a much better job of it than my generation has. Do you find that the case with your peers and those that are younger than you, or is it pretty much the same scenario?
It's interesting. The topic of, like, I definitely see patterns in generations, but I'm hesitant to generalize in general, just because everybody is, like, I see people in like my parents and grandparents' generations that they were so driven and they worked really hard and they focused on themselves. But I think overall, I think you're spot on. For example, like my mother is a caregiver through and through. Like, she will take care of everybody. Everything gets done, even before, she takes care of herself. And even that can cause a lot of suffering. And man, I think when you said it, it really made me think of this idea that there can be a lot of like judgment and from other people when you don't put everyone first. And
yeah,
I think that is, like you said, it's getting some light shined on it, on how that's not really helpful, and it's kind of just hurtful. And it's kind of usually just a reflection of how we feel. If you're casting judgment on other people, you probably don't feel super good yourself. So it's really interesting. I'm really excited just for the space for younger people. I think people are a lot more open-minded to the idea of kind of leading with themselves and kind of embodying a lot of of what you're saying. So I'm pretty much always a glass half full type dude. So I'm pretty optimistic about it. I think there's definitely it's just going to continue to grow, right? Because these are the principles that make us feel so good. And I mean, what do we really want here, right? I just want to feel good and enjoy my life while I got it.
Mm. Yeah, I think what's really so positive and encouraging for me is seeing that like the younger generation have become so aware, where mindfulness and mental health and well-being is something that's being spotlighted now, and when it starts from a much younger age, I can only see good things coming from that, because you're literally grooming a generation of more conscious, enlightened individuals. And that can be a very, very interesting and beautiful future that we can look forward to.
Thank you. I don't know if you saw, I was gone for a moment because as you know, Tanner, I have moved and I don't yet have my Wi-Fi connectivity. So I'm using my mobile data, and it connected, it went off. So that's life, right? I'm not going to suffer about it to stay on topic. I want to come back to some of the things that you mentioned right at the start, the need to please, and that's actually a saboteur that we all have within us. And I mean, I've shared many times on this segment, our primary saboteur is our judge. It's our inner critic. It's that feeling of feeling like an imposter. And to no fault of our own, this was formed at a very young age. And I know you are still very young right now in your third generation. But at the same time, this is through an experience, through a person, through some form of a construct in our life, whether it's our social or our work or our schooling or our religious constructs. How do you then tame those saboteurs when they do show up? Because if they're part of us and they're never going to leave us, as you've mentioned, the dragons never leave us. How do you tame the dragon? What are your tips and solutions for that?
Yeah, I think this will be, I think of the hero's journey, right? This, what you guys do really well to embody. And I think slaying the dragon is probably the grandest opportunity and gift that we can all give ourselves. And man, it's going to be so different for everybody. But when you do it, maybe I like this idea of finding friction. Say maybe it sounds like, I don't know. I don't know if I have any dragons. I don't know what comes up. I think one of the things that kind of helped me, because that's kind of where I was with it right in the beginning. I was like, I don't have any dragons. I'm doing fine. Like, look at this and this and this. But just kind of finding the friction. Like if you feel friction towards anything in particular, there's a good chance there's a reason for it. Like whether it's doing, a lot of my coaching is like just action based. Like I just do, like I'll do sales. Say you're scared to make sales calls. You give me a phone number, I'm calling it right now. And we're just going to see where things come up. And like when you feel this friction and you feel the resistance, that's usually where we need to break through and go in there. And so when you feel the friction, when you feel the resistance, say if somebody says something about you, whether it's your weight or your height or, how you look, maybe something about your family or something like that, if we get just a reaction, a painful reaction, I think that's usually where the den is at, where the dragon's sleeping or whatever, or then it wakes up, right? And it's very painful. So I think just where we feel resistance and we feel we need it. For example, I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke anymore. And this big believer, if you need something, you probably need to take a break. Because if we're dependent on anything, I think dependence is like, I liked what you said earlier about like, that's where the dragons are born. It almost seems like this when we're not, like, we're meant to be independent souls, but when we're dependent on other people, other substances, other things, it seems like that's like laying the eggs essentially to something that can really beat you up. So Jamila really brought up a good point of just this power of raising awareness. And I think that's a good starting point. And then from there, I probably could go on a little bit more about it, but like you said, just finding the right person to help guide you through it was a lot more helpful to me, because it was a lot more about feeling than it was about thinking and talking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, Anissa, I think with that awareness, it's so important for us to accept that awareness without judgment for ourselves. Because we're not perfect beings, by any means. And sometimes it's difficult to accept something seemingly negative about yourself. But when we allow ourselves to do that and bring in the light and the dark and, for lack of better, the good and the bad, and see ourselves as those imperfect beings, it helps us to move on to the next stage, or it helps us to deal with those issues so that we can let go of it. And I play paddle, and I've been to a coach, and I say to the coach, oh, you know what, I haven't played a racket sport anymore, but I have been playing paddle and I've developed some bad habits. And now I've got to get rid of all those bad habits. And he said to me that it's not about getting rid of the bad habits, it's just becoming aware of it, and then finding tools and measures for you to practice things differently going forward. So it's important for us to acknowledge and accept and be aware of whatever the challenges that we have inherently with us, and to leave it aside and to be okay with it, and to come to that decision that, okay, this hasn't worked for me, but this is my new path that I'm going forward, and going to do my best in trying to be the best of who I am. So I think that's, like, for me, a really important point is to look at ourselves without the judgment of our imperfections.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why I asked the question, do we actually need to slay these dragons, or do we need to befriend them? So that was going to be my follow-up question, because our entire lives we've been taught to dislike, disown, and have this dissonance with this part of ourselves. But it's who we are. We were
Absolutely, Anissa.
designed to have
We've
both.
had so many conversations, Anissa, about this ourselves, where we've beaten ourselves up for years and years and years, only to now realize how unnecessary that was. And if we just had to, like you say, befriend those dragons, welcome them, and show them where they are meant to be. Like I used the analogy with the bus, we're all on this bus and we have all of these traits about us, but we know where to keep each one. We know to keep the gratitude, and we know to keep the appreciation closer to the front of the bus. And maybe all of these other dragons have a space on the bus, but at the back.
Tanner, in the last 7 minutes that we have remaining on this segment, what is there that you're burning to share with our audience and for those that are going to watch the replay as well?
Yeah, I would say I really like the idea of taking messy action, and I'm very optimistic about the ideas and the information that people are presenting nowadays, where I think I personally was tripped up for a long time, and I think a lot of other folks is just like doing the fundamentals. Think of your favorite sport and just finding peace and finding a way to make doing the fundamentals a little less painful, a little more enjoyable. And I think feeling good comes with like progress and feeling and getting better. And when I think of my like trying to build a company and trying to like get started and stuff, it's so overwhelming. When you think of a rocket, it takes most of the fuel just to get off of the ground. And starting is, whether it's, you know, your weight loss journey, you're trying to make more money in a company that you want to support your family. Getting started really is the hardest part. And I can't stress enough that whether it's, I personally did a good, I benefited a lot from taking a technology break. We're literally talking on, you know, so you're listening into it, but this idea of maybe setting like one day a week where you go back to the Stone Age and then you just kind of dive into what you need to do. Shoot, I mean, if you need someone to work with, whether, you know, these guys as coaches or somebody just to like really dive in and just start taking messy action, and you just will be so blown away by what you're learning. It really is about, for me, I started really feeling better when I just was taking action. And it sounds, I'm sure you hear people talk about it ad nauseatum, but there's clues, and this really is. So whatever you want to do, if you can just do a little bit of it today, like, and not wait, I think that will pull out genuinely like 90% of your suffering, because it's when we, like, our souls know what we really want to be doing. But when our actions aren't in alignment with who we really are, we're going to feel like crap. And it's going to be really painful. And it's going to feel like the world's coming down on you. And when it rains, it pours. But man, when to those who do, they receive in a whole different way. So whether you want to write a book, if you just write like 20 words today, or whether you want to start a business, you just tell one person about it. And just, yeah, I can't stress enough, just taking action has made me feel really good. So I wanted to express it and share it.
So I'm hearing from that, in summary, it actually sums up creating a life plan that honors values of accountability, clarity, and fun. And just let go and let be and have fun.
Yeah, it's funny. They when I meet with people for the first meeting, I say, what is the number one thing you're procrastinating right here, right now? And then we just start doing it for 90 minutes. And it's crazy what you can get done in 90 minutes. It's always a mind-blowing experience. For example, I was working with somebody yesterday, real estate agent, and they had a big, long email list. And they hadn't reached out to these people in like 3 years. And I was like, what is the number one thing that you've been procrastinating? What do you need to let go of? And he's like, man, I just want to follow up with my clients and kind of get back on track with it. I was like, give me the list right now. I'm doing it. And I just started chucking out emails. And then he started doing it. And then we did like 150 in 90 minutes. That's more than he had done in like 3 years. And then he felt amazing. And then he's like, I'm just going to keep going. Because all the gas is getting the rocket off the ground. And if that's what we can do for folks, that's what I want to do. Because it's really, man, it really is so tough to get started. Like the fact, I don't know what episode podcast is this?
That's a good question. Let's see on the flyer.
Is it like
I think it's 61.
61? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're in the top 3% or top 5% if you do more than like 8. And
Wow.
it really is just, man, but it's so hard to just put yourself out there and to just speak your message and to have folks on here. So that's why I commend you guys so much for doing this, because it really is. You got to be brave in a whole bunch of different ways, but man, yeah, if you're really struggling to take action, like get some help. I've had coaches, I've had friends, mentors, somebody, and like if you don't have any money, post on. I remember when I really didn't have any money, I posted on a Facebook group, and I was like, "Who wants to meet up and do some sales calls?" Because I would make one call, and someone would call me an idiot or say they don't want it, and I would be emotional. I'm like, "Man, this," and I would just be like, "This ain't for me, man. I can't do this. This is too hard, yada yada." But then when I did it with my friends, like yesterday when I was with the person, we were just chucking the emails in our action power hour that I like to call it, and like we're just like bantering back and forth, like, oh, hey Susie, we're hopefully gonna try and get you to buy this house, or hopefully that, and it's just like, man, and that's when you see the fun part of it. That's really because you can't get away from the fundamentals. Like it's just, I think it's, I think I got lost in the idea that softwares don't save your business. Like there's no escaping the hard work. You don't just get rich, like just because you downloaded HubSpot or you got StreamYard. You don't just get buckets of money. They sell it because
The
they're
shiny
geniuses.
object.
Yeah, it's shiny objects. They sell it because they're geniuses, and that's how you make money. Because you sell convenience and ease. But like the entrepreneur phase that we're going, which I love. I think we need as many entrepreneurs as possible. But this, I think it almost gets diluted in the media because it's like, oh, I don't have to do the hard work of finding the guests, following up with people, sharing it. Like you have to do the hard work. It's just like whether you're going to enjoy it or it's going to be like just hitting you over the head, So.
Do you know what I love? And I mean, that's going to stick with me. Who wants to do some sales calls? Because listen, nobody's in sales and everybody's in sales, right? We think we're not in sales because we don't have the title, but we all bloody selling something of ourselves, whether we're selling ourselves as a brand or whatever our businesses. Ultimately, it is about the relationship. All of this is underpinned by relationships, but the relationship with yourself is the most meaningful. If that is flawed and you're in suffering, you're not going to attract or manifest anything, whether or not you're going to make sales calls and have the power hour. None of that will manifest until you cleanse that internal frame of reference and write a new script for it. So I'm that, but I do like that. I'm going to try and see who I can call to do some sales calls with me. Maybe Tanner, you and I can jump on and do.
Get a hold of me. Yeah, I'm still taking on free folks, so I don't even charge right now. So if you need somebody and you want to just go into it, that's my mission. I just want to rip the Band-Aid off, and I want to help and serve. And so you get I would love to help in any way I can.
Absolutely. Where can people find you, Tanner? I mean, like, where do they need to reach you? Have you got a website?
Yeah, so I can put it in the chat. So you can go to oneplp.com/partner. This is the business I'm really focusing on right now. This is if people want accountability and they just want somebody to help them take action, and whether it's like I help people record videos, say if you're scared of public speaking, doing sales, doing marketing, like anything to build your business and make money. If it's on the list, baby, like we'll dive right into it. So you can go to oneplp.com/partner. And you can book a free call with me there. Again, I'm not charging right now because I'm trying to prove, I just know it's going to give back to me in goodwill 10 times over. So you can go there. But yeah, so anyone who's having a hard time, like with procrastination, which, man, that really cost me so much suffering in the past. And so it's funny how our greatest pains tend to be the driving force for our mission to try and help serve other people. And so, yeah, so if we can turn that, man, life is so crazy, but this, you turn that pain in the butt, that's ball of suffering, the dragon, whatever, and then you turn it into your mission and your service, and it's like it's just
Agreed.
interesting how things come around.
So we've reached the end of our segment, but Jamila, is there anything you'd like to close off or share with Tanner in terms
Yeah,
of
no,
reflection?
just wonderful to hear and see his journey, learn about it, and also I think just to see that you found your passion in life, and that makes a huge difference about how successful you are, because when you enjoying what you do, you just keep going at it. It never feels like it's work. It feels like it's what you were meant to be doing, being put on this earth to do. So it's fantastic to see that, and to observe that you found that. We're so happy for you, and you are paying it forward and helping others to come along on the journey with you. So we're very grateful for you spending this last hour with us and sharing all this incredible information and bringing a new twist with the blackboard to
Yeah,
the episodes. We love that.
yeah,
And yeah, look forward to chatting more with you in the future and possibly having you on again.
yeah. Anytime, would absolutely love it. I can't thank you guys enough. You guys are really helping a lot of people, and very brave for what you do. So I fully commend it. Thanks again for having me on.
Do
Thank
stay
you.
with us. I'm going to end the live. We're just going to do a short debrief after this. But thank you for those that were here on Instagram. I may not have acknowledged any of you, but I have been typing away. We valued all Tanner's insights, and I was just wanting to capture as much as I can. So for those that are watching the replay, do go and comment and just share. And I have put Tanner's website on there. He's giving away free sessions right now, so capture that as much as you can. So without further ado, I'm going to end our live stream, and we'll see you again same time next week. Thank you.